What's up, everybody? I just rushed home from the Atlanta airport where my flight was once again delayed, but made it. Fared better than some of my compatriots on the plane who are misconnecting in the ATL tonight. So I can't complain too much. Most of them were, I think, able to be reaccommodated tonight. So um, Alex will be along shortly. He's having some technical issues with his camera. Um, so fun times. Um, Thanks everybody for joining me. Um, Honestly, wild, wild game uh, at North Carolina on Saturday. Um, Sort of a perfect storm of things that could go wrong for Georgia Tech, and then it all kind of came together in the most ironic way that Georgia Tech could win a football game. So yeah, it was interesting. I'll tell a couple anecdotal stories from stuff that I heard from talking to people up there, just real quick. First off, as always, Coach Collins is notorious for going out and dapping up his players and all that stuff before the game, and he was nowhere to be found. Both, both. Sorry, I'm just laughing at stuff in the chat. Both myself and some other people, namely Chad Bishop and Jackson from the SI site were up in Chapel Hill. We were down on the field and kind of looking around for Geoff. I just kind of wanted to get a picture for Twitter and all that stuff. And speaking of the devil, here's Alex. What's up, buddy?
Not much. I'm on my phone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound fine.
All right.
Wearing the wrong color shirt for Georgia Tech fans, but
It's
yeah,
Falcon
you just.
Sunday.
Oh, okay. So,
That's the only
um,
I wear.
oh, somebody coming in with the bent carrot jokes. I love it. Um,
Oh
uh,
God.
so you're like a hair, like you're getting like just your nose and yeah. So you might want to duck down a little. There you go.
Get over.
So I was just telling everybody before the game, Chad Bishop and I were down on the field and Jackson looking for Geoff, and he just was nowhere to be found. And I asked some people that are on that program, they're like, yeah, he's normally out here. He didn't like come out until the team came out for their full warm-ups and full dress. And he was leading them through his group through the drills or whatever. So I found that to be interesting. He was definitely hiding out. So that sort of set the tone for the day. And then just it was interesting. Something that Brent Key talked about that I wrote about in my story from the game was that every other game they'd been like super aggressive and firing safeties and trying to stop the run. And for whatever reason, Geoff decided it was a good idea to play off and play his safeties back and play prevent and kind of keep everything in front of him, bend but don't break. I don't know if that was a mandate for Mac or was his overthinking it or whatever. But clearly, Haynes King, which was the first question off the top, was dinged up in the game and was struggling to throw the football down the field. He was okay throwing the intermediate passes and the short stuff, but was really anything kind of a little bit further along he was having trouble with. Um, so that whole thing was kind of an interesting build up to the game. I did hear about Geoff's hair plugs and the theory behind them from somebody who knows the staff there. They told me that they believe he went to Turkey to get uh, his hair transplant procedure because that's apparently what people do now. Um, so there you go. That's what he's doing with his Georgia Tech buyout money, I guess. I like Geoff fine. He makes it so easy to like give him a hard time, man. It is like being a high school senior and like a seventh grader comes into your school right now for him. Like he is just a prime target. Um, that's what the Merkin thing is on the top of his head. But yeah, so like that was the whole lead up into the game. I found that interesting that he didn't come and interact with anybody. I don't know if a couple of players, I guess, said they sought him out, but most everybody was just sort of like not interested and really have anything to do with him. I think there were people going to talk. There's a couple of guys on the staff one of whom I talked to after the game, which is Patrick Suttis, who's a great dude, who was Jeff's GM. That's an assistant or associate AD. I'm not sure what his title is at North Carolina now. He was a great dude. He was talking to Brent after the game, and I went up and talked to him for a minute. And he was always great to me, and really sharp guy, and happy for him that he found a good spot up there. And Nick Newsom and a couple other people that are on that staff that were here, but not a lot. Jeff has never had a lot of people, so that he brings around with him. So it's kind of been slim pickings there. So it wasn't a full like, oh, I'm seeing this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy. Um, as for the game, like I said, Haynes was obviously having some issues with his shoulder. I don't. It'll be interesting when we find out. Probably not till he gets better. When he started having problems with whatever was going on, but uh, it's it's interesting. I'll tell you right now, I would be shocked to see him play against Notre Dame. Not offering any inside information or anything, just the fact that he couldn't finish the game told me a lot, given the circumstances and what they're playing for, and that he's a tough kid. He. I mean, it's literally the uh, first time he's missed any like real actual gameplay since he's arrived at Georgia Tech. So that's kind of impressive too. The dude's played. He played what, 6.5, 6 3/4. Oh, sorry, not six. 16 and three. No, 17 and 3/4 of a game, whatever it is. He's played every game that he's been in at Georgia Tech, except for a couple blowouts where they pulled him out, and maybe one other game they pulled him out in late, or maybe the Clemson game. Anyways, yeah. So Haynes, I'm hopeful he's back soon. Not going to get into speculating exactly what's going on. Um, he did have a shoulder injury at A&M. I don't know if it's related. I have no idea. So we'll see. I would assume that it'll be the Zach Pyron show against Notre Dame this week, and maybe even at VT where Zach had that come from behind win in Brett Key's first year up in Blacksburg. That was pretty cool. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks, but it's definitely a time where you're thankful that you have a Zach Pyron and you have Aaron Philo behind him that are capable of running the offense at a high level. And yes, they were conservative at the end of the game with Zach in there, but I understood what they were trying to do. They were daring them to run the football a little bit. They just got better at stopping the run down at the end. So we'll see what happens. I think the Notre Dame game's gonna be a hard game. We can talk about that off the jump here too. It's a tough matchup. I'm still sick, by the way. I've been sick for like 3 weeks. I went and got checked out and everything, and got put on antibiotics for a respiratory infection, and that hasn't really seemed to clear it up. So we'll see what happens. But that's why I have a cough drop in. So yeah, so that's what's going on. As far as the Jeff of it all, I said this on the board earlier today, but as the game was, starting to look like it was going to go to overtime, we were all kind of like, and it was funny. A couple of the North Carolina writers who were sitting behind me in the sort of press box. It's like kind of multi-leveled. It's usually like 3 levels, and I was on the lowest level with like all the Georgia Tech people. Most of the Carolina beat was on the second level, and a bunch of their writers were going over. There was a basketball scrimmage right after the game. They were all freaking out, thinking they were going to have to delete their North Carolina loses fourth straight stories. So there may or may not have been some appreciation for the way the game ended from the North Carolina beat writers as well. But what happened, and I told us on the board though, is just I saw Jamal hit the hole. I understood what they were doing. They're trying to get a first down, set up a shot, take a shot downfield to see if you can kick a field goal. Right, that was the plan. Yeah, 2 timeouts. They throw the first pass that got them 7 yards or whatever, and then they try to get the 3 to get the first down to make sure you don't give the ball back or anything, and then take your shot downfield to set up the field goal. And I saw Jamal make his first cut, and then I saw what was coming up at him, and I just started laughing hysterically in the press box because I saw exactly what was going to happen. I saw his next cut, and that there was no one behind that person, at any kind of angle. And my only question at that point was, would they get him and have to kick a short field goal, or was he going to make it all the way to the house? And he was not stopping. For those who don't know, famously, Jamal was supposed to be an early enrollee in his class, which would have been 21, 20. What was Jamal's class? Anyways, Jamal was a early enrollee. He graduated 2021. So they had him graduate early and all this stuff. And then because the former head coach screwed up his numbers, they had to tell him this. He had to hang out like without going to school for 6 months. So he didn't get to like do his senior year in high school, like the final half of his senior year. And they just kind of hung out. I went and interviewed Jamal during all this, and it was like a whole big ordeal, and there was a lot of drama, and everyone kept asking us if it was going to ruin Georgia Tech's relationship with Grace in high school. And it almost felt like that Geoff was trying to drop him. And I won't go that far, but it didn't come across well. And so Jamal's never forgotten us. And really, he was just kind of the forgotten man the whole time um, he was playing for Geoff, because he was this guy. I was like the only person that would write about him. He was stuck behind Nate McCollum and Malik Rutherford, who are two like all ACC level slot receivers. We didn't even know about Malik at the time. I remember everyone flipped out on me when I said that I thought Malik would be better than Nate when Nate left for North Carolina. Um, and time has proven me at least fairly correct there. Malik's been much more clutch than Nate has, certainly, and been healthier, which is surprising given their two size differences. Um, so, anyways, Jamal waits his turn. Then obviously Buster Faulkner gets hired. Buster has a history of turning some of these guys who are kind of these high school all-purpose backs into running backs in his offense. He likes that, and Buster liked his ball skills, his ability. He was a very solid kick return type guy. Like, he liked all that, saw something there, and saw his toughness, and thought he could play running back. And then he made that switch in the spring of 2023, and then you suddenly have like an all ACC level, at least maybe like third team all ACC level running back in Jamal. And one man's trash is another man's treasure, as they like to say. And he didn't really have a break, like much of a future with Geoff Collins at the helm, and even with Brent's first OC, who he inherited, Chip Long. But Buster comes in and he finds this guy and turns him into something. And it's through Jamal's hard work, that he was able to accomplish what he's accomplished so far. So I think it's a cool story, and a great irony that he was the one that broke Geoff Collins' back and Mac Brown's on Saturday. Because if that game goes to overtime, North Carolina has all the momentum at that point. They're at home. You have your backup quarterback in. It is not the most optimistic situation if you're a fan, even though Zach's very capable of winning games like that. It's just not the ideal situation you want to be in. So I think it worked out really well.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy into the game. I
Yeah,
don't know.
you were like literally not talking for maybe like 2 hours after the game, but that was pretty funny. I didn't hear Alex is just like, I'm dead. He texted
Yeah,
me, he had a heart attack.
I got a little experience with those kind of games, but
Well, I may have a lot of who covered Georgia Tech for 15 years or whatever it is.
yeah,
It's I had joked before a game with some of the beat writers that I was expecting the most ironic thing to happen, which is some sort of dramatic loss to North Carolina, and then they would beat Notre Dame in the Benz, because that's the Georgia Tech way of the last whatever many years. And it turned out that no, they still got Mac Brown, even with a bobbled snap punt that turned into a punt return for a touchdown, and all the other weird breaks in the game that didn't go their way. But
Yeah,
It was
that
something.
that drop pass by the tight end there. I mean, I don't know if
That
that would
one,
have.
the one Nate dropped, which was huge in the
Yeah,
game. There's a huge momentum killer. It's like last week when Star Thomas trips and falls down when they were trying to go in and punch it in to go up. Duke. Sometimes you need a break, man. Georgia Tech's had a lot of them go against them. And look at the play at Louisville with the defensive touchdown. The Haynes King, if he somehow gets that ball to Malik had no one within like 10 yards of him and a full path to go like 90 yards for a touchdown. It's a small margins thing that Brett talks about all the time. You create margin for yourself. They played well enough through most of that game to have a level of margin to withstand kind of a furious comeback by North Carolina, aided by some tech miscues. The 12, I told a story about the 12-man penalty. Um, Essentially, what I was told was that that had to do with the helmet comms cutting off and a change of play and someone not getting the signal to come off the field. Um, so those things happen. Oregon won a game last night because of a 12th man on the field penalty, where people think that Dan Lanning intentionally did it. I don't know if I haven't been looking today, see if they came to the bottom of that, but it's cool. I thought it was awesome for Tech fans. I told Brent after game, I was like, thank you for winning this game because it made my next 2 weeks much more pleasant, regardless of what happens in the Notre Dame game. People could not have withstood on my message board a loss to Geoff Collins.
yeah, especially in the fashion that it was going, like where you were in control of the game, and all of a sudden it was going crazy at the end. But it's kind of the opposite of what happened at the Syracuse game. Like Syracuse was kind of in control of that game, and Tech made a
Yeah,
crazy
Tech.
comeback.
Yeah, and if Tech had 2.5 more minutes of game time, maybe, or like even
Yeah.
2 minutes of game time, they probably win that game. All right, answer Ray Turner's question here. What was Geoff using the walkie-talkie for? That's how they do the helmet comm. There's one for the defensive coordinator or whoever the person is that's signaling it in, and there's one for the OC. Buster has one too. You just don't see it because he may be. So I've seen them they have it in practice and stuff, and they just go in and he can talk into the helmet, and then it cuts off. So that wasn't anything bizarre that Geoff had, but I understand why if you were looking at it, it would seem bizarre. But the idea is that you only want one person talking to them in their helmet. So I think that the broadcast, the LSU Ole Miss broadcast, was saying that Lane talks into it too. So I don't even know if that's legal, but um, but yeah. So
So he's talking to the staff on his actual headset, but he's talking to the guy on the mic comm on the
correct,
walkie-talkie.
correct.
Gotcha. I
All
gotcha.
right. Let me see. So yeah, getting back to the Haynes King thing. Uh, I
I
don't
think the
think
first
he's done for the year or anything like that. I just feel like if he's wasn't able to finish the game, it's going to be a week or two before we see him again. I would think. Um,
he he did something like it was the first drive of the game. I think he was like, I don't know if he got hit or he got hit while he was throwing or something, but he was favoring something around his shoulder, his ribs or something. So I guess it just, I don't know if it was a thing he had before and it just kind of popped up there on some weird kind of hit or something. But he was battling out the whole game. You could tell, and I
yeah,
don't
he
know
was trying
after.
to shake his arm out and doing all the things you do when something's wrong with it, whether it can be anything. There's so many different things in your shoulder, especially it's like being a pitcher. Like there's different aspects of it, and you can have rotator cuff or joint or whatever. So I'm not going to speculate as to what's wrong. I don't think he. It's definitely not. He didn't break a collarbone, or he was not like. We saw him. He wasn't like in a sling or anything. So it's definitely not a broken bone, but because he was back on the sideline just chilling. If he had broken his collarbone or something, they would have taken him out of there, or at least had him in a sling. So
Well, that's another thing that was going around was a concussion maybe, but if he had that,
there
they would.
wasn't a concussion. I can tell you.
That's what
It
like
was definitely they were working on his shoulder, like you saw it on the you could see on the sideline they took him into the tent and everything. They weren't looking at his head.
And if you got a concussion, you're not going to be out there in the bright sunlight after.
No, he would have. So the telltale for the concussion is it'll be the only time you see guys on the sideline with sunglasses at practice or at a game. If you see guys wearing shades and it's sunny out, that is because they have a concussion. Just the only reason, the only way they're allowed to wear them, pretty much anywhere. Maybe Dion does at Colorado, but like that might be the only place that you'll see that.
I stayed up for Dion game last night.
Did you?
Made it interesting.
Oh, I watched I watched some of the awful Tennessee Florida game that ended when Mertz got hurt, and then they just went into the toilet with Flagway, and then what was the other game? I was watching Ole Miss at LSU because I thought it was a pretty good game, and I watched what was the other one I was watching? I was following the Kentucky Vanderbilt game, but I didn't watch that. I followed a little bit of the Syracuse Louisville game, but we didn't have that on the TV. I didn't feel like streaming it. I kind of just wanted to watch good games last night. The Oregon Ohio State game.
Yeah.
I watched a little bit of that, just to kind of get a flavor for those teams too, just to see
I,
what
wa-
they're about.
I watched kind of end of the Vanderbilt Kentucky game. One of my buddies is a big Vanderbilt fan, and he's
All
kind
the
of the same.
degenerates loaded up on Kentucky, man, to take down the mighty Commodores.
I mean, he's kind of thinking about the same thing a bunch of the Georgia Tech fans are on this board. Like Vanderbilt's like a play or two away from being 6-0, and but like
Jerry Kill, baby.
but it's the same way with Georgia Tech. It could go either way. That's why I put that in my takeaways about things even out. Like you are where you're supposed to be record wise. So
Yeah, I think
um,
Georgia Tech has. I mean, they probably, if you play that Syracuse game, they probably go 5-5 playing it 10 times, right? The Louisville game, they could have easily won if they didn't shoot themselves in the foot. But again, they could have lost the Florida State game. They could have lost, to North Carolina or Duke. So, yeah, I think so.
so the first question on the board was about Collins and Key, like an interaction. I think you talked about that a good
I
bit.
don't
So
think he talked to him, and so a lot of people watched the video on this channel, the interview I put up. After I got done, we talked for like a few minutes off camera. I asked him about his luggage because everyone has been asking me about his Louis Vuitton luggage. He was like, I don't even know what it is. He's like, it's just a bag that I was carrying. He was like, I have no idea what brand it is or anything. He was kind of chuffed that you guys were fascinated by that, and it may even be his wife's bag for all I know. He had like no idea what I was talking about. And then I asked him about Geoff, and he was like, he didn't. I don't think they had any interaction. That was what I gathered from him. And the reality is, I think about it this way: if there was any reality where he was being truthful about his love of Georgia Tech and all those things that Geoff said when he got the job, then he would have to be horrendously jealous of Brent Key. I can't even imagine, right? Like this dude's being successful in the job that you couldn't handle doing. And so I think that I
I don't
don't
know if you read some comments on the board, some people don't think he's very successful. So I don't know.
the people who acted like they lost the game on Saturday, yes, those
Yeah,
people
I don't know.
who also didn't watch like Alabama nearly choke a game away against South Carolina with the coach who's like maybe the hottest coach in college football, and Kalen DeBoer, like going into the season. Yeah. Um, I want to take this for a second from Joe the Pilot. Where is Kyle Eifert grading at a 46 this year? If you use like PFF, he had his highest grade of the year in this last game. We lost Alex. Hold on, I'll pull up Kyle Eifert's grades for the year. Are you talking about like pass coverage or something specific, Joe? Like, because he is for the season 67.4 on PFF, 73 and for run defense, almost an 80 at tackling. on a 100-point scale. Pass rush is 58.9, so 59. 60 is considered dead average. 62 on 0.2 on coverage. I think the guy who had a tough game was actually Tajay a little bit, and they ended up playing Kyle more in that game. He did a great job. There we go. Here's Alex.
Yeah, I hit the wrong button. My bad.
No, I thought you had a technical problem.
No, just my finger.
So let's yeah, there are people who find things to complain about. That's the but you know what, man? So Papa Goat, I will say this. This is not unique to Georgia Tech whatsoever. I covered Georgia. I've covered recruiting for LSU and Florida during my time in 20 something years at Rivals, almost 20 years at Rivals. Alabama, USF, Mississippi State, Cincinnati, all of the fan bases are like this. So you're not Joe's saying he just thought Kyle Eford looked slow. Kyle Eford is certainly not Charlie Thomas or um, someone like that flying around, but he is a very solid Mike linebacker. They scheme it for him. Tyler Santucci knows what Kyle Eford can do. You have to scheme for him a little bit. He's not going to run sideline to sideline for you play after play, but he's a very solid Mike linebacker. He's playing really well against the run this year and doing most of what he can. He has had some issues in terms of pass coverage at times, um, being out of position a little bit on a few plays, but that happens to all of them. Saeed Gibbs had a really big miscue in the game on their short touchdown, the one that J.J. Jones caught. I don't know what the call was. I don't know if it was Saeed or the safety, but they just let J.J. Jones run right by both of them. Saeed was sort of lined up like he was man to man on him, just stood there while he ran by him, and then the safety didn't come over, and it was an easy touchdown.
Yeah.
Joe's also saying that Zeke needs time in the shoot because he's pad level's too high. Yeah, that's something that Zeke struggled with his whole career. He played one of his better games on Saturday, though. He gets very fired up playing in the Carolinas in front of his family.
His pad level being high helped him out on one of the plays, though. He
He
knocked
stood straight up and like smacked the guy, like because he was like straight up, and the guy just ran into him.
Yeah, and one of the he knocked a pass away, like, got through it right into his hand, so, yeah, I mean,
But yeah, the
he
linebackers probably need to like be. They're still not at the point where they have four guys that can play consistently. They seem to get two or three a game that play well, and Tucher's having to kind of mix and match it. Eford's been the most consistent of all of them. Jackson Hamilton's been up and down. Trent's played pretty well most of the year, but he always has like these one or two plays that he gets a bad tackle or bad ankle or something, and he still hasn't stopped making those mistakes. Um, as well, he's cut down on them, but he's still making some of those. And then Tajay's just young. Tajay will have his time, and they're starting to work EJ Lightsey back. He was on special teams on Saturday. I'll be curious to see if EJ gets into the mix as he gets back healthy. He missed quite a bit of time, so I don't know where he is in that pecking order. But he's missed. The problem with EJ is EJ missed a lot of time in the spring and then missed a lot of time in the fall now. So I imagine he's a little behind the other guys in terms of their comfort level in the defense. But maybe this is a week where you see a little bit more. Depending on how the game goes, you see them maybe give some guys some shots at trying to make plays and getting in there. They're still mixing in Jordan Boyd a little bit at defensive end. Obviously, Tay Seymour's really taken over at the safety spot from Miles. Kind of just took that job from him. So that's been good for them because Tay's played really well. There's been some. The nickel position is the hardest one. It's always been very inconsistent. Saeed made some nice plays, especially in the pass rush on Saturday. Was less effective in some of the passing plays. But again, I need to know what the calls are and stuff before I like fully call that out.
Butler got hurt, went out for I don't know if he came back in, um, sometime in the second half, I believe, so that was somebody had a question about other injuries other than King and Goody yesterday.
So
I
Godey
know
messed up his knee. I would
Yeah, it
assume
didn't
that
look good.
that didn't. Yeah, it didn't look good. So I'm gonna guess that he's probably down. I think Jackson Hawes is close. He traveled, didn't dress out. Um, yeah. So Lamiles is a great dude, and he's being a tremendous teammate through all this, and that's something that's impressed me. He's played his butt off when he comes in behind Tay. It'll be interesting to see if maybe Lamiles starts to eat into CP Lee's playing time a little bit because Omar struggled some, and it maybe becomes a three safety rotation a little bit like what they did with Jay King and Miles and Clint Powell Lee. That could be something we see too eventually. I don't know how they. I would have to ask about the safeties and how that works in Tuch's defense. I'm not totally down on if it's mirror. I don't remember if it's mirrors or if they are more free strong or whatever. So
I think Lamiles is better against the run also. I don't know if I'm seeing that wrong, but he
Miles is good at the angle, but his tackling has been his probably biggest issue overall throughout his career, probably because of the shoulder
right.
issues he had. And I think the one thing that's kind of stood out to me watching this Carolina game, to get off topic for a second, was you got to see the depth of the team, right? They were down to the Avery Boyd, a converted wide receiver, and Luke Harpering, a true freshman, playing at tight end, and Harrison Moore, a true freshman, who's an offensive lineman playing tight end. And they were functioning fine on offense with that. And with a pretty complicated tight end scheme. And they weren't going four wide, and they weren't doing any of the stuff that you would think, or two backs, or whatever you might expect to kind of compensate for that. They just kept rolling. So I think that was encouraging. I think it's encouraging to see some of the younger guys play. Obviously, they're not playing. Uh, obviously, not having everybody healthy has been an interesting challenge, but they've done a good job of just prepping the next guy up. I mean, look at the running back room, right? How many of us had Chad Alexander as the backup running back on our bingo card going into the season? Trey Cooley played one snap of football this season. Anthony Carey was the guy that everyone was really excited about. He was a really explosive back, but he's, played maybe 40, 50 snaps this year over 4 games, maybe. Um, yeah, it's just interesting. Seeing like Luke Harpering and that weird play where they had the botched um, fake give, and he just caught the pass and ran down the sideline, took off down the sideline, was great to see. So I think there's a lot to be encouraged about. The tight end play has been a lot better this year overall. Um, the kicking thing's still a problem. They got to figure out how to make field goals over 40 yards. But I think
Right.
it's exciting to see what sort of being built slowly up. You can see the pieces and the bits and bobs offensive line. Like, it's much older right now, but they have young guys with a lot of talent in the pipeline. They've recruited really well on that front. Defensive tackle development has been impressive to me too. Like, get another year of JJ. Horace Lockett hasn't even played, and he was the guy who was starting games last year, and he's struggling to get back into the rotation because the other guys are playing so well. So I think on top of him being hurt, so I think it's a good problem to have, and I think it's an exciting time if you're a Tech fan to kind of see Brent starting to build what he's talked about, which is having depth right now is the hardest thing in college football because of the portal. But if you stay on top of your recruiting and the fact that the tech degree means something to a lot of these kids, is a huge deal. I mean, the tech degree is why Zach Pyron's still on the team, and he's going to probably start a game on Saturday against Notre Dame for you. Um, in most cases, that guy would have left because of Haynes King. I see it all across college football, but he wanted to get his degree. He talked about it to us, and he stuck around for an extra year, probably when everyone else would have left. So I think there's a lot to be excited about. Yeah, let's jump back into the question. Sorry, I went off on a
And
little diatribe there.
that'll lead straight into the next question. It says, "Will we see the full playbook if Pyron starts next week? They did not seem to trust him on Saturday." Well, you won't see the same playbook. I mean, like they're gonna make they're gonna go with what they feel comfortable with Pyron. It's
So
not all
it's a
the same
two-edged
thing.
sword, right? You're looking at
Right.
what Notre Dame does defensively, and then you're also looking at what does Zach do well. Zach can run the same plays that Haynes can't, and he can make all the throws that Haynes makes, and they have similar arms, and like both have stronger arms. That's one thing Zach's worked on a ton since he got to Tech. When he first got there, his arm strength on some of those like out routes and things was not ideal, and he's really worked to build his arm up and be able to make those NFL level throws. The guys like Haynes and Philo are also able to make. So I think you have three guys who can sling it like that. Um, but yeah, Buster, I'm sure we'll be looking at if it's going to be Zach this week. I think it's not they're not gonna walk out and try to run the ball 80 times and act like they're a triple option team.
Yeah, I mean, running game's been good, but they're no. I think what happened yesterday was they were trying to play to protect the lead and hoping the running game could finish it off, and it
Or
didn't.
they're trusting their defense, which is not a crazy thing with the way the defense has been playing this year. Like Brent's at the end of the day, Brent is still kind of a conservative coach. He's not This is not Paul Johnson. He's not in love with his offense. And that's no shot at Paul, but Paul had the ultimate confidence in himself, right, to execute. And sometimes that would lead to really stupid things happening, like the time he ran the reverse to Corey Dennis, who never touched a football in a game and got killed. That might have been against Old Miss, maybe. Um, those kind of things, like not Brent's not going to do that. That's not his MO as a coach. He's trying to put guys in a position to be successful, right? And he trusted his defense. He thought they could go out and win the game, and they played pretty well the whole game. And then they struggled a little bit. And Chip Lindsey made some adjustments, and they were able to move the football. Really, the main thing that got him was just that Tooch kept being aggressive, and that was getting they were getting too spread out, and then that was opening his run lanes for Criswell to scramble and pick up yardage. And that's the give and take when you rush and you have guys like Romello Height that are going to be really hell bent on going and doing their outside rush. Um, you maybe need to look at that a little bit, and they were getting held quite a bit too on some of those plays. If you go back and watch them.
Ramillo was dealing with debilitating cramps too, also. So, um, but yeah,
I love that people are like, it's like the thing where people were like, well, and you get 5-star guys in basketball, like when Josh was here. It's like Josh was told not to cheat, and so many of the people that were very successful in the past were able to bend rules. So it's funny to me that people don't see that bending the rule in football. And
I mean, if there's no way to like until they make the change, you do what you do to like you have to do that if you have to do it. Like if they're not going to do anything to you to punish you, that's why I talked about that in my takeaways. Like,
well, they weren't like doing the thing where he's like pointing at like the running back like Jackson Dart did. He
yeah,
pointed at his running back and he fell down like he'd been shot by Jackson Dart.
there
Uh,
was I don't you probably didn't notice it. You were there, but there was a pretty bad clip on the broadcast of Eford and Romello, like kind of figuring out which one was the designated,
the
you
flop
know,
guy.
cramp guy. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, but anyway, I mean that it happens. It happens. It's happening all across college football until they do something about it. It's going to continue to happen. So
Literally every team in college football has a kill signal, whatever it is, on for their defense. One thing they did do, by the way, which they should get credit for, what people got mad about from another game is whenever North Carolina was subbing when they were trying to when they were trying to score at the end of the game, Georgia Tech subbed with them to eat up time. So they were doing like gratuitous subbing on those last two Carolina drives to suck up more clock, which helped.
right.
Yeah, as Will said, yeah, great point, Will. Bill Belichick, it's about what you can get away with and working on the fringes of the rules, right? Everybody holds on every play pretty much in the if you want to get technical, you start watching the offensive linemen, everyone's holding somebody, or there's always you could call pass interference on pretty much any man to man play with any kind of bump and run coverage or anything like that. There's always hand grabbing and all that stuff going on, right? It's a matter of being able to interpret rules, and this is not, um, you know, it's the equivalent of somebody winning $5 in the lotto and not reporting it to the income tax. Like it's not gonna probably get you audited. Put it that way.
The next question on the board was what things would you clean up specifically on defense that will better prepare for Notre Dame? I thought the defense yesterday played pretty well, other than the last the last few drives.
They need to get so they got home. They got 3 sacks. If you're gonna blitz as much as they did, you need maybe another one there. Um, this week they'll have Riley Leonard, who's kind of an interesting quarterback. So I feel like it's going to be a little different with him because he can run. Um, I don't
they
know. This is going to be a really interesting game. I have not. I'm probably going to spend some time this week watching some Notre Dame because I haven't watched a lot. I watched them early in the season when they were not good on offense. So I kind of want to watch this Stanford game to see what happened there, and then maybe get an idea from some other games.
Yeah, I'm the same. I saw a little bit of the Louisville Notre Dame game, but it was second half, and Louisville was trying to come back. I don't. Yeah, I hadn't seen much of Notre Dame's. I can
It's
actually
not
pay
a great, from
attention.
what I understand, it's not a great matchup on paper, but um, you're playing with house money this week, I think, especially if it's Zach and you've got guys banged up and you've got sort of the most important games to not to diminish the Notre Dame game, but you have the most important games of your season still ahead of you, which would be the rest of the ACC slate and Georgia. I think that could make Tech an interesting team in this game because maybe you see Buster get more creative. Um, maybe you see things like double passes and maybe it's opened up a little bit more. Maybe it's not. Maybe I don't know. I think it's gonna be a really interesting week. And it'll be interesting to see what the plan is if Haynes can't go, which my gut feeling is he can't. But again, I'm not saying anything. Anyone's told me he's not going or anything either. So I don't want to
Right.
get into all that. I haven't even asked anybody about it, to be honest with you yet. So
That's the next two questions about Haynes King and health and stuff. So we'll skip over those. Um, there's a question just about what's going on with special teams this year, just like a broad question. I don't know, like kicking from the right hash is tough, and I don't know, punt, snap, and protection's been a little bit like he's trying to get the ball off in a rush, like every time he punts now. So that's definitely something they'll figure out. I don't know. That's special teams is tough. You got
yeah, so I guess he hooked the one to the left. Is that what happened? It was hard. It's hard to tell with where we're sitting, and there was no TV to really look at to watch replays. But it sounded like he hooked it a little bit. The one they missed.
I don't know. My brain's like that fourth quarter. I don't know. I can't even
The
remember how.
chat will immediately jump in and be like,
I can't
um,
remember where he missed it to. I was kind of just like assuming he was
your
going to
your
miss it.
our boy found so you found some gambling site that listed Haynes King as questionable. There's no official status from Georgia Tech on anybody, other
No,
than Brent might say somebody's out. Just for FYI's sake.
they don't.
So don't.
They don't have
So
the availability report like the SEC does now, so they don't have
no.
to. Yeah,
And I used to. So I still probably have. There's a ton of like gambling sharps that follow me on Twitter or X, or like trying to glean like injury stuff. And I haven't had one DM me in a long time because I like got really sketched out by this dude who tried to DM me to get some info on like somebody many years ago, and I was like, bro, I ain't telling you anything. Like this is so sketchy. Like I'm like getting skeeved out by the fact that you like even messaged me. So yeah, to answer your question, no one with knowledge of what's actually going on is should say anything publicly at this point. And right now would be about the soonest they would really start to know anything. Anyways, Steven said he hooked the field goal, so it
It was
gets in that thing, man. It's like a golf, like what I've always heard. But I don't play golf, so I always heard about golfers and their swings. Same thing with kickers, and this went on with when Paul Johnson was here. There's kickers that get in their heads, man, on different types of kicks, and like they just can't do it. So
I covered Adam Griffith at Calhoun when I was doing sports in Calhoun, and we kicked a state championship winning field goal for when Calhoun beat Buford. He kicked some huge kicks at Alabama to win games, and then he would like, I don't know, kickers are weird. Like you miss one, you just not like, I don't know, you get in a bad routine or you lose your confidence a little bit. Like you go through bad stretches, and I
they
don't know.
turned
So
into Nick Anderson and with the Orlando Magic shooting free throws all of a sudden.
yeah,
Like
I mean, it's like people were talking about on the game thread yesterday when I think it was the one kickoff that Burr didn't kick for a touchback, and they had a pretty good return. And when you were talking about the golf swing, it's like it's the same thing. Like you're not going to hit the ball flush every time. Every once in a while, you're going to hit one off like you do, hitting the golf ball. So
well, go watch a guy take BP in the major leagues, right? Like the BP pitcher generally is throwing, about the same area. They'll foul balls off and stuff, even if it's like, Acuna or someone like that. Like they'll still not, they don't crank every single one. Like it's still foot eye coordination at the point of kicking or hand eye or whatever. And there's very few people. Harrison Butker missed a field goal. Like he's not perfect. He's the best kicker in the NFL. Like imagine being not on that level yet. And so yeah, I mean Harrison missed a lot of kicks early in his career at Georgia Tech. People forget his earlier exploits because he became really good at it. So we'll see what happens with Burr. I feel bad for him when they were on that right hash. I was like, why did they? I was like, run to the because they ran a play. It was with Pyron, and they ran to the right. I was
they run
like,
like a QB follow, like they pulled a
I was
guard
like,
around.
run to the left, run it to the left. Like, my God, like run to the left. Like you know that you have this issue. Like, go to the left, and then do it.
That's
That is frustrating. I understand why fans get frustrated by
right. That was the next question. Do we have anyone else available to kick from the right hash?
that. They were down the
And
backup punter in the game. He was Joshua Taylor. He was out with some kind of injury. I remember seeing him like he was just standing around. I was like, wait a second, that's the backup punter. And like somebody goes, you're like the only person on earth who would notice the backup punter's out, Kelly. I was like, well, um, no, I mean they're not deep at the kicker position. Like there's not guys who are ready. Let's put it that way, ready to push. Burr's clearly the best kicker.
then there was a question about what the team had for breakfast yesterday. If they had Waffle House, I don't know if we. I don't
It'd
even
be
know.
funny if Brent had the Waffle House truck show up to practice that Geoff used to have come out all the time.
Yeah. The next question was about Pyron at the end of the game. Why didn't they let him pass more?
They're
I
just
mean,
trying to
like
run
we said,
clock and protect the lead.
yeah, they're trying to. They've got a 7-10 point lead. They're trying to. I know it didn't look good and when it was all said and done, but you're not going to be aggressive with a backup quarterback when you got a lead like that. And you hopefully the run game can get you some first downs, and it didn't at that time. But
It would have been different if he came in and it was the second quarter, and you have so much game ahead of you. But knowing what I know about both guys, like I just think that that was not out of character for what they wanted to do in that situation, and the defense had played really well the whole game. Or not, Paul would do the same thing a lot of times too. Like it's not out of character for a football coach to be conservative in that moment.
and the running game had Like,
There could have been more varied in run game. I agree with that.
yeah,
Run some outside zone or something that's not just straight up the middle.
yeah. There's a question about kicks being blocked. I think it's talking about the punt protection scheme. Is it time to change the protection scheme? I don't know.
That's a little above my pay grade, but I can ask about it when I get a
Yeah,
chance. Maybe.
um,
Alex will be pinch hitting for me Tuesday, so my oldest is off for the week, and we have a variety of medical appointments scheduled and different dentists and all that fun stuff. And so a lot of that was booked out before I knew what the tech schedule was. So Alex gets pinch hit for me this
I'm
Tuesday.
sure. I'm sure I'll ask some hard hitting questions to Brent Key.
I'll send you something to ask. It'll get him pissed off. That'll be fun.
The board was asking us to ask about the faking injury, so yeah, I'm sure I'll really do that and just make
Someone
him
will
hate.
probably ask about it anyways. I mean,
Right.
it's a thing.
I'll let Rod ask that one.
Somebody asked, "Are we gonna live stream Jeff's presser tomorrow?" No, I might check it out. I might watch it later, but I just mainly out of morbid curiosity. But I don't like. I've struggled with this. I don't want to give that dude like too much attention. Like he has lived in the brains of Georgia Tech fans for far too long, and I feel like I'm hoping this is sort of the moment, the severing moment,
Closure.
where yeah, some closure. We'll see, but
Yeah,
that's my hope.
we accomplished what we want to, and now it's time to move on. And that was the next question was about Jeff's how soon will Jeff's podcast return after he's fired this season? So
You can have
um,
Brent on. That would be one I would tune into, or you could have Paul Johnson. He can tell more TV broadcasters how Paul Johnson set him up to fail at Georgia Tech, and blame the
yeah,
triple option for why he's not a head coach anymore.
when they got into that, I think it was the end of the second quarter, on the broadcast, they started with the normal excuses, the roster.
Clearly, Jeff had just plied them with all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah, I heard about it from quite a few people. One of my buddies called me this morning. Was filling me in on the. I always get filled in usually on Sunday about the broadcast and whatever terribleness was on it. Uh, when
it
it's
wasn't
not West, pretty much anytime that's not like West Durham and Luganville doing the game, and pretty much anyone else, there's always this complaints on a Sunday morning.
and the color guy is was Max Brown. Like, well, he like just graduated
Wasn't
from
he like the quarterback at USC or something?
USC, and I think he transferred to North Carolina.
Was he?
If I remember, I can't remember. I don't know, but it was just a weird broadcast altogether. It was.
With Tom Brenneman who got canceled? Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was the famous Castellanos call after his
Yeah,
blur.
I've forgotten that story, and one of the guys recounted it to me before the game. We were down on the field, just verbatim, like what happened. Because I remember watching the clip when it happened, when he's just like, "I don't know if I'll ever be doing this again,"
There's a
and
deep
like
drive.
apologizing. There's a line drive deep. It's out of here, and I'm sorry for my, like, man.
Great. There's a question about how close is Halls to being back. I think we covered that. He's not like
I
he's
think
just a
Haas is bad. It's day to day with him at this point.
yeah.
I would put him as if they were putting out the probability report like the SEC has for injuries, I would put Haas at day to day.
Yeah, it's not like a long term thing. It's a something they're trying to manage with him and get
Yeah,
a
I think
break.
it's the pain threshold thing at this point
Right.
for him.
Let's see here. There's a question about posters being negative. I think we covered that. And
I enjoyed just seeing just the infighting was impressive on
what,
on the board. I was like not expecting that at all. Like it took me. We were working and there was a lot going on, and then I went and talked to Sudus and talked to Brent and some other people after the game for a few minutes. Then I went back upstairs and I was working. Then I went and got something to eat because didn't actually really have a meal until like last night. And then I was in my hotel room or was eating, and I looked at the board for the first time. It was just like, what the hell is going on? Like, why are people upset that they won the game? Like, this isn't Alabama, like, yet. Like, you're not walking out. There's no one in the league they're going to play where you're just going to walk out and roll your helmet out and beat them right now. Like, you're not there. Um, so be glad when you win games. It's hard to win a game, man. Ask, you know, Mike Norvell right now would probably give, part his earlobe to win, 5 games, like, and get the heat off of him. Like, but that's how thin the line is. Like, everyone, we all heard how great Florida State was and their great transfer class and whatever. If you don't gel as a team and you can't figure it out or you miss at a key spot, you're dead in the water, man. Like, NC State's dead in the water right now. Like, they're competitive, but they're kind of dead in the water because they their quarterback has concussion issues and they kind of missed on him. He wasn't a great fit, and they're coming off 9 wins or whatever, and they're gonna be lucky to go to a bowl game. So with a not particularly hard schedule, it's look how quickly Wake fell apart. Um, the margins are slim for everybody, man. Like, Mac Brown's about to get fired. They could easily have a couple more wins, especially if their defensive coordinator did a slightly better job.
Yep, it's hard to win.
That was shade for you people to enjoy.
Yep. There's a question about the prevent defense yesterday. Well, I guess went on Carolina's
Were
last
they
couple
really
drives.
playing prevent? It seemed like
I
they
mean,
were
they
just.
went to the 3-man line for a while, and then they finally figured out to spy the quarterback when he kept running up the middle. So I don't know. You
That
got
was
a
what
10.
got them more than anything. They were just trying to play coverage.
Yeah. Yep. Bama don't break. Let's see here. There's a question about coaches evaluating their own in-game decisions. Kind of
Brent
like what?
definitely goes over that every week. He
Yeah.
has talked about things he screwed up, and um, both publicly and privately, actually. And he's very clear. Like, he knows that, like, I mean, there are things that every coach that I've ever covered screws up. Mark Richt's a Hall of Fame coach. You want to ask him if he wants the squib kick against Georgia Tech again, like he did against Justin Thomas? I think he won't. Like, these guys, like, get paid a lot of money, but they still will make mistakes, and it's a high stakes game, right? Like, and you screw one thing up or somebody just out executes you on a play, everyone's going to second guess what your decision was, right? Let's say that on those run plays that they ran, where everyone was talking about them being conservative, they're looking at it and Jamal and they line up the same way they did in that, and Jamal hits that long 68-yard touchdown run when they're up 10 or up 3. People are talking about the game differently. You know what I mean?
Right. I think it was Thursday when you I can't remember you asked the question about road having experience on the road
Playing
and
well on the road, yeah.
processes or whatever, and he talked about going. I think he said they spent like 6 to 8 hours a week, like going over what worked, what didn't work, like what are the best ways to,
They
you
go
know,
over that. They have I think it's 2 days a week where they spend a couple hours going over every critical call from other games in the country. Um, so they'll go back and look at, like, like Billy Napier not going for 2 against Tennessee when they scored at the end of that game, right? They lined up to go for 2, then he called a timeout and they kicked the PAT, and then went into overtime and went backwards. Like, those are the moments that, like, these people always look back out. So.
I saw that too.
Oh my god, I appreciate that, dude. I needed to laugh.
I think
Um,
that I think there's a question lower on the board on that on the
yeah, I'm not going to get into Kirby, like, almost going Woody Hayes on somebody. It wasn't clearly not intentional, but clearly this gets to something I talked about on the board the other day, which is, you're an adult man, you're making millions of dollars. You've got to control your emotions a little bit better than a drunk guy at the bar. Like, they were winning too in that game, I think, when that happened comfortably. They're up 10, probably,
it was
right?
like the last it was one of the last 2 drives I think that Mississippi State had. They
So
were up
they're
10.
up, you know, at least the score. I didn't watch any of that game, so I couldn't tell you. But yeah, I saw that when I got home, and it was making the rounds with my coaching buddies. So let's put it that way. They were shocked. Strat Jacket is asking about Key lobbying the refs on close calls. I've seen him working the refs many times. Let's put it that way. He uses his coaching voice. Um, we'll put it that way too. He is not above, not getting in somebody's face. Is he gonna like grandstand like some of these other dudes? I don't think he has the what would be the right word, Alex?
I,
The
like you can only complain so much if the call's not going to get changed. You got to move on to the next play. Like you just can't
there's a
continue.
certain amount of bank that a coach has, and he's not
Right.
there. He's not Kirby with rings or like
He's not Coach K.
Sark
Never
or
gets
somebody.
technical.
Yeah.
Like,
Hell, they didn't even throw a flag on Kirby hitting that kid. Like, if Brett Key had done that, that would have been like a 15-yard penalty had been thrown out. Or it's pretty much probably been anybody else.
yeah.
It's not like Ryan Day or maybe like DeBoer or somebody like that. If it had been like Jeff Libby had pushed one of UGA's players, all hell would have broken loose. Somebody wants to know. I am still working on that one. Planning on trying to go see Adams from play in Oklahoma. I really am interested in seeing him.
Looks like a good
Um,
player. I don't. He can sling it around.
yeah, I want to see Grady. I've seen every Tech quarterback play in high school except for Haynes King. Since going back to, um, except for Jeff Sims and Haynes King, going all the way back to probably to Quan Marshall. So I try to make it a point to see the quarterbacks. I think it's important and it's good to build a relationship there and all that too. But I think I like to see them play, especially if I can see them play in high school. I saw Graham Knowles at a camp, which wasn't quite the same, but I did see him in high school. And then obviously I went to one of Aaron's playoffs games, Aaron Philo. I saw Zach Pyron play in high school. So yeah. Hell, I might have even seen Brody play in high school. I have to think about that for a minute.
Let's see. I kind of lost my place on the board here. Um, let's see. There's a question about scale of 1 to 10. How surprised were you when the whole fourth quarter unfolded the way it did?
I wasn't at all.
Expect the
Especially Chad was sitting next to me. Chad had like a 7 p.m. flight or something back to Atlanta. I wasn't. I never do that because I want to work and watch other football games. And um, I was like, dude, you have like totally cursed us by doing that. And when the game got tied, I just looked at him and gave him like it's like, this is all your fault. Because he also jinxed us all because he said when I had picked 34-17 and it got, I think, to that score, he was like, oh, dude, you picked the score. I was like, no, 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 no. I was like, it's like the third quarter or something. No, like, stop. So this is nothing comes easy at Georgia Tech, and I was not expecting an easy out. I was very much waiting for the other shoe to drop at any point during that game.
I mean,
I didn't
we
even
talked.
start writing. To tell you the truth, I didn't even start writing my story. Like I waited. I wrote like two things that were like I wrote some things that were notes, and I did my drive by drive. But I was not writing during the game because I had no idea how it was going to play out.
It's just it seems like that's happening more in college football, like we talked about earlier. There's just like
There were tons of these games. Look at
everybody.
Colorado last night, or the Oregon Ohio State game, or like lesser, like that Syracuse Louisville game was like a blood. I mean, not Syracuse, was it Syracuse and
NC State,
NC State? Sorry, yeah, that was like a blood match.
Louisville, and Virginia came down to the
Stupid
end. I mean,
Pitt, stupid Pitt couldn't cover the damn three. Like
I
it's
knew
3 points, man. They scored 32 points combined. Like
I think
I'm
that's
so mad about our picks, Alex. Like,
I gotta go back. I know I think I picked Wake, which was absolutely dumb, but
I was 3-3 this week.
I think I've been doing a little bit better. I don't know how I could have done worse than the first 5 weeks or
you
whatever.
did better on the first couple picks, and then I think you fell off in the back half.
I'm glad I'm not gambling. Um, there's a
Yeah,
question
there's
on
a
here
lot
about
of parity in college football right now. It's because of the portal and a lot of other factors in NIL and uh you can't just that's the thing with like Alabama or Georgia are seeing right now, right? They would normally have guys who were their third and fourth string are starting at other places now. And so they're thinner. So when those teams start to have injuries, it starts to compound on them. And then you're not developing that depth the same way. We talked about this thing in the last video last week. I think it's making the game more interesting, more like the NFL in a weird way. That's we could see for the first time this year in a while a championship game with no current or future SEC teams. Um, like you just don't know what's going to happen. I think that right now it would be like Texas and Oregon or whatever, but who knows?
I think Texas opened up as like a 3.5 point favorite against Georgia, which is a little bit crazy to me because I thought it would
Man,
be a
I
little
would
bit.
if I were a gambler, I'd probably jump on that.
Yeah,
Georgia's
that
not
I thought it
playing
would
well.
be bigger than that, but I don't know.
That's a pick 'em. If it, in Austin, that's basically a pick 'em. Like
Yeah, and
you
Georgia
just give
has
them the
not
home
looked
field
good.
advantage.
So, um, there's a question about Anthony Carey on here. He said that he had stated a goal about being a freshman All American.
Well,
Do you
every
think?
kid says that. I just asked him. Like I always ask that question to kids. I've never met a kid who hasn't said that. Yeah, I want to be like all conference or something. Like that's not going to be like the determining factor in what Anthony Carey does with his life.
And like, what will it be tough to hang on to him with Jamal and Chad? Clearly, the top two. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
it's a
know.
problem to worry about later.
Yeah, the transfer portals later on. I don't. And if you got running backs good enough where he gets pushed out, I mean, that would be good. I mean, it's not good long term, but it means you're pretty good in the running back room at the moment. So
Yeah.
let's see. There's a question about keys in game and clock management skills. We talked about coaches kind of
Yeah, I
going.
feel like we've talked about that a lot.
Yeah. Let's see.
I know they did a decent job with it. His strategy was very sound for what they were trying to do at the end of the game too. It's
There's a
what
question.
literally Ohio State did, and they got screwed up by it. But that was because their quarterback didn't slide because he didn't look up at the giant clock in front of him while he was running.
There's a question about if anything, what can be done to fix officiating. It is bad throughout every conference, or just
It's
uh,
bad throughout every conference, man. I watch these games every week. It's just bad. The ACC's bad. And, I guess we haven't done a video since I was up in Charlotte. But so I was at the ACC tip off, and I was sitting with a writer from Carolina, one from Duke, one from Wake, and one from NC State. And we were having a conversation about officiating. They were talking about the crew that Georgia Tech had for the Duke game, and how I'm not gonna say which coach it is in the league. It's not Brent, but one of the other coaches when they get that crew literally is like comments about it during after his press conference ends with the media, like privately, like and how much he hates them. So there's a little puzzle for Joe Magalese or whatever his name is to figure out which one of them is complaining about him. But yeah, it's bad. It's bad across. There's a lot of it's a lot like the in college basketball, you'll see the call where they're anticipating like contact, like they'll call a foul, expect it. Happened to Georgia Tech a couple times against Duke and Carolina last year, where like I think David was about to blow a stack. That might have been the one where he kicked the glass and broke it. And I forget what game that was. Duke. Maybe he broke they have like the tables, the score tables have the ads running on them. He broke the glass on the one. I think it was a Duke kicking it because they're getting screwed by the officiating, which they were. Even the Duke people were like, yeah, that was suspect. Um, it just is, man. It's like it's hard. Like unless you had I could figure out a way to do it with like robots and AI or some crap. You could call something on every play, like I talked about, and so I don't know. So this goes into that question. Yes, the defensive delay of game is a point of emphasis this season in college football, along with what was it? There's something else that is too that they're calling a lot now. But yeah, that's something that they're apparently guys were doing this and clapping and like trying to simulate snaps and doing other stuff to try to draw the other team into a false start. So yeah, it's a point of emphasis.
I think the other thing is like they called it in the Duke Georgia Tech game was the like defensive line not suddenly shifting. You can't do that anymore to like simulate the snap or whatever. Um, which I don't know. That's kind of gray area.
Well, yes, this is what I've said. This is $1 billion industry, and they're spending the least. They pay the referees like the same as they pay like and probably making more, but like people who work in the stadium for the game, and probably want to invest more on the people that have an active outcome. Not to slight against people who work in stadiums because there are a lot of cool people that do, but if you have an active ability to impact the game, I think it's crazy to me that those people that have other jobs. I was on a flight to the Syracuse game. I was on the flight with one of the referees from that game. He was like bitching to one of his buddies about a call from their previous week's game that went against the got in trouble for with the league or something. I like overheard this whole cell phone conversation. He was like 2 seats in front of me. He was just talking very loudly on the plane about it while wearing his ACC gear, and he had his ref stuff. And then I saw him in the stadium at the game. Um, yeah, having a guy that works at Dick's Sporting Goods or whatever, come referee the game, um, the big game that is going to decide whether Miami makes the playoffs or not from the ACC. Probably a little problematic, and probably something they should invest in.
All right, here's a little recruiting question for you. It was the Sam Turner flipping at Auburn a money thing. So
No comment.
yeah, I don't. I mean, who knows? I texted
I'm sure
Kelly
he's.
earlier
I'm
when
sure
I was
that.
doing I was doing following the future for tomorrow, and I told him I was like, man, I've never deleted a name faster than I did the guy that flipped this past week. So I don't
I
know,
mean,
but I don't know.
maybe it was that juggernaut of the Auburn offense he's watching every week has just made him like burning to go play there. No, I
Yeah,
mean money is a huge factor right now for recruits in general. It's helping Georgia Tech in some places, but Brett Key's going to be smart with how he has NIL distributed, just like every other coach in the country. And one of them needs to desperately fix his broken offense. So if he's wanting to pay top dollar for a guy who's not Eric Singleton fast or the size of Calvin Johnson, then that's his prerogative. I like Sam Turner. I think he's a good receiver. I think he's got a chance to be a very good college receiver and maybe play at the next level. But he is not like a make or break kid for anybody. And I find it fascinating that there was so much fighting over this kid. When to me, he's not significantly better enough to be like a dude that people fight over. But
well,
good luck to him at Auburn, man. I hope they find a quarterback because I would not want to play receiver for the dudes they've got running right now.
no. I uh I saw some of the back and forth on the board about Sam Turner. There was one about receivers being lower rated and having success in college and everything. I think the whole thing is like it's great to have a guy that's like a game breaker, receiver, running back, defensive back. But the positions that matter the most is offensive line, defensive line, quarterback, any level of football. So if you get those guys right, the guys
People want
around
to come play. People want to come play for you. That's the
right,
that's
and those
the
are the
the truth.
if you got a great running back and your offensive line's not very good, it's not going to matter. If you got a average running back, you got a good offensive line, you're going to be okay. I don't know. I've always like that goes back to the NFL thing about drafting a running back in the first round. I would never do it. I don't know. I don't care how good it is. Like I don't
Oh, you
think
wouldn't draft John in the first round, man?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe Bijan Robinson and Gibbs. If you got a good offensive line already, yeah, you can draft like a luxury position like that. But I, I don't know. I think skill players is all based on what's at the most important positions: quarterback, defensive line, offensive line. So
Uh, I'll answer DJ's question. He's asking me if I've noticed anyone signaling guys go down with injuries, or do they do it themselves? They're injured. No, I'm not going to pretend to be naive. I'm sure that somebody has a kill signal, like to go down. No, I've never noticed it. My back is to the Tech sideline at home games, and then they were super far away. And Carolina has one of those real high up press boxes where it's hard to see. I had to use my binoculars to look at the sideline, so I wasn't. I don't care about that, so that wasn't something I was looking for. So to put it to you that way. But yes, there are. I'm sure that some teams have kill signs to go down.
I think this is one of the. I've looked through some of them. It's a bunch of repeat questions, but I think this is a pretty good one. It says, "Do you think that 5-2 with essentially 4 conference road games to this point is not talked about enough?" I think that's a really good question. And we've already
Well, remember, people were talking about how hard the schedule is, a top 10 most difficult schedule, and all this stuff, and you have a chance to be bowl eligible, in the next 2 weeks. Um,
in October.
yeah.
Yeah. So, yep, I agree.
I will. We're still going down this road here. Hal's asking about changing the rules. So if you get out with injury, you have to sit out the drive. I like it. I don't disagree. I think in the spirit of the rule, having somebody have to sit out for a drive makes sense. Uh, yeah, I have no problem with that if that's the counter to this. If that's the counter move, I'm curious if there's even a huge drive to fix it. And so far there hasn't been. So we'll see.
I don't
Um,
think I don't think the coaches are the one that's complaining about like they're well,
no, it
Beamer
seems to
did
be
last
more
week.
opposing, but the fans of the opposing
Yeah.
team doing it.
Um, yeah, because like if one coach pushes against it, like all the coaches know what's going on here. Like it's not nobody's innocent here.
Everybody, literally everybody does it.
Yep.
Like they all have like a weighted or some kind of plan for it.
It's like old recruiting stuff. Like no coach ever wanted to. Only in certain situations, one coach is going to tattletale on another coach because they know everybody's doing it. So you're doing it. Like,
Yeah, you have to be pretty egregious to get turned in
yep.
in recruiting.
Let's see here. I'm looking a lot of repeat stuff.
We'll pick one more good one. We'll wrap up on that. Well, hold on. Before we do that, let's take a second here, and I want to thank our sponsor, Section 103, who brings you the ultimate in Georgia Tech apparel and every kind of thing. Very cool stuff. They were right on top of the win over North Carolina. My favorite's the North Avenue Trade School. I like that shirt a lot. You get your Haynes King stuff, the Brett Key hoodie, all of those fun things. So check it out. Section 103. Get all of your tech stuff. Support Georgia Tech people and support people who support things that like JOL that um, are helping cover your program, and it's an easy thing to do, and you get something out of it. So help out our friends at Section 103. Thank you. All right, pick a good last question one on this because I think I would like to see my wife before she goes to bed since I haven't seen her since like Tuesday morning. I haven't seen her since like, Monday night or something.
It's been a long week. Let's see. All right, here says situational question. The game is tied in the fourth quarter. You have the ball with less than a minute left and 2 timeouts. A field goal wins it. Your first play results in the clock continuing to run at 36-second mark. Do you call a timeout?
All right, I need to read this question because
I think,
you can go ahead and answer it, but
yeah, it depends on how far you are away from the line of scrimmage. If it's a big play that you get a first down on, the clock stops. I would get another play going or go ahead and spike it. I would not, if it's a second down and you just made a short, play, you can get the line of scrimmage quickly. I would go on without using the timeout. You can if it gets under 30 seconds, I think you got to start using timeouts. If you're around 30 to 45, you try to get up there because you can use the timeouts later to get those get more plays in that last drive. So I don't know. I mean, yesterday I don't know if Georgia Tech was going to take it to overtime if that play didn't go the way it did with Jamal, but
no. So Brent talked about it. He said that they were trying to get a first down to make sure they didn't give the ball back, and then they were going to take a shot to set up a field goal. They were just trying to pick up. They thought they could hit him for a chunk play on a run. Ohio State literally did the same thing last night. Like I think people don't understand this is not an unusual call. I think so that happened in the LSU Ole Miss game. I think too, and maybe at the end of the first half. Like you can try to surprise them with a run, and then hit a little bit of a chunk play where you're not taking because the run takes up less time than dropping back for a pass. That's the thing people don't think about. The 2 seconds or where you gain 2 seconds or whatever you would get from dropping back and them having to read the field, especially when the team's playing coverage. So the thought was they were spread out and firing to the outside to defend the screen in that moment, which is what Buster saw. So his call was to run up the middle that was kind of vacated, and clearly it was because he had to make one cut to take off. So I think it was a smart play there. So
there were definitely no safeties in the middle of the field, so turned out
yeah,
to
they
be
were worried about the screen. They just thought Zach was going to throw another screen, which would have made sense if you were trying to just dink and dunk your way down the field. What they don't realize is that they'd actually be okay with him running something over. So the interesting thing about Zach playing quarterback is he's probably better at throwing the ball in the middle of the field than Haynes King is, which it's a little bit of Haynes' weakness in his game is he's a little less accurate on some of those concepts over the middle. Zach's a little more accurate with it. Um, from watching them play and having seen a lot of them both throw the football. So we'll see what happens. It'd be an interesting game. I'm looking forward to seeing whatever Buster cooks up. If Haynes can't go, yeah, they're playing with house money. This is one of those ones where they're playing with house money. So Georgia Tech's been very dangerous in a lot of those games. But if it turns into the Clemson game from a year ago, either I wouldn't shock me either. So we'll see what happens. I like this the least out of all of the games they have left on the schedule, the matchup, including Georgia. And this is the worst matchup for them out of all the games left.
yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Appreciate everybody. Um, we won't hear anything on. Won't hear anything specific on probably Haynes until Tuesday when Brent talks, and I don't know that Brent's going to tip his hand one way or the other either. So just prepare yourself for uncertainty until they start warming up on Saturday. I would say that there's no reason for Brent Key to be like Haynes King's not playing this week. He's out with an undisclosed injury. Like you get nothing out of that. So I expect him to play a little cat and mouse game this week, and we'll see what happens. But Alex, any final thoughts, bud?
Not really. I got some recruiting stuff kind of in the works. I've made contact with Pettigrew and seeing where he's at with Georgia Tech in South Florida, and um, got some other kids that I've talked to from 26. I'm trying to figure out about Georgia guys. about the Georgia visits from this past week. Dinkins visited Georgia. I'm trying to figure out what happened there. So I'm going back to OTE tomorrow to see a Kai Fleming play and get an interview with him. Maybe Bryson Tiller will just be hanging around practicing or something. I don't know. But yeah, I got some recruiting stuff in the works, and I know everybody's upset about the Sam Turner thing, but there are other kids out there that's gonna fill the class, and Georgia Tech can flip some kids their way too. So
Wide receiver is not the end all be all of
no, not
the
I don't
recruiting
believe
class.
so.
So
But yeah, should be a busy week, fun week. We'll see what happens at the Benz on Saturday.
thanks, guys, everybody. Good luck to Georgia Tech on Saturday and the Benz if we don't talk to you before then. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Check out Jackets Online, subscribe there. Tell your friends about it. Support your independent media covering Georgia Tech. It helps us out. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you again very soon.